Reading with your kids.
Hola, niho, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, monimuruwanji, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so honored and so very delighted that you are joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show, and please be sure to subscribe to the show in the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, wherever you get your podcasts. Our guest today is Alana Tyson. She'll be here to celebrate her debut picture book, My Red, White, and Blue, with our guest host, Jordan Sahley. Before we invite Alana and Jordan into the studio to help us celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. Day, we want to invite you to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids. We'd also love for you to connect with us on Instagram, @readingwithyourkids. Same on TikTok. On Twitter, it's @JedleyMagic. We would also love for you to check out our Reading with Your Kids channel on YouTube. And of course, we would love for you to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. You can sign up for our free newsletter that features some amazing author profiles written by Rory Grady. You can also find our brand new Drawing with Your Kids page on our website. We're inviting some of the best illustrators in children's books to teach you and your kids how to draw their favorite characters. You can find all that and more at readingwithyourkids.com. And of course, we would love for you to use the contact button at the top of the page. Send us a message. Let us know who you would like to hear on a future episode of the podcast.
Hello, my name is Jordan, and welcome to today's episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Today I am joined by Alana Tyson from Alexandria, Virginia. How are you doing today, Alana?
I am doing fantastic, Jordan. Thank you so much for having me. This is my first podcast for the book that comes out very soon, but we'll get into that. But I'm doing great this afternoon. Thanks.
Oh, well, we're honored to be the first podcast. Do you want to tell our listeners a little bit about your book, My Red, White, and Blue?
Definitely. So My Red, White, and Blue is a picture book for ages 4 through 8. It was published by Philomel, an imprint of Penguin Random House. And it comes out, well, the most important thing is that it releases on January 17th. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty important for folks to know. Everywhere on Amazon and bookshop and things like that. But just to kind of get into the book itself, it is a book that it takes a look at the American flag as a symbol of whatever the viewer, whatever the person looking at that flag takes away from it. And so I can tell you a little bit more about, how the idea sparked and all of that. But just on the surface, the book really is answering the question, what does the American flag mean to you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know, what does it mean to you, and does that play into how you wrote your character at all?
Definitely. So on the surface, just to answer the question, the American flag means a lot to me as an individual, but by no means am I suggesting that the reader takes on my thoughts. I think the book touches on a broad spectrum of what the flag could possibly mean, and more so why people typically in the Black community have the reactions to the flag that they do. Mm-hmm. So for me, I come from a pretty patriotic background, but it's kind of interesting because I'm not from a military family. You will typically see that in a family that's military or veterans. But my family, my parents, just were Black Americans, grew up in Harlem, New York. My mom was born in Harlem, New York. My dad was from Savannah, Georgia. And we grew up here in America, and my parents kind of instilled this idea that America was a great place for opportunities, even though, we all know that there are a lot of things in place in this country that hold certain people back, typically people of color. But however, and that's kind of why I wrote the book, to kind of examine those two, that dichotomy of, how does a Black person in America who possibly has felt like they've been not treated the best in this country, how do you still move forward and have patriotism and still feel like this country is a great place to be? So that is kind of really what the book is about. So around 2016, my oldest son, I only had one son at the time, I have two now, but my oldest son was about 10 years old, and I was shopping at Old Navy for the 4th of July. And I kind of wanted to, typically as we do, parents do, mostly moms, you want to get all the summer gear and, stuff that's all colorful and bright. And I was in Old Navy looking for shirts, and I found a really cool shirt that I thought my 10-year-old could wear that had the American flag on it, had the U.S. flag. And at that moment that I went to reach to grab the shirt, I felt very conflicted. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow. I would have never thought that I would have that feeling. And the confliction came from the fact that it was 2016 at the height of a lot of civil unrest in a lot of different big cities surrounding law enforcement and people being mistreated in, Black communities and minority communities. And so I wondered, it was like, well, if I get this son, if I get this shirt from my son, how does he look like, or do we look like we don't support, the movement of trying to fight for justice in this country for people that look like us? So, I was there, I stood there, and I was very conflicted again, but with getting the shirt, I was like, well, do I get it? But at the same time, I have worked, so I'm a federal employee, and I've worked for the government for the last 20 years. And I'm like, well, I hold a clearance, I'm loyal to my country. I love my country. I love being an American. Like, I shouldn't have this. It was just an idea that I felt like I shouldn't have this hesitancy to pick up a flag while I am myself American and a patriot. And so that was the catalyst for the book. And so I thought, if I'm having that thought, how are children feeling?
Exactly. So how did you end up getting the shirt? Or
I actually did get the shirt.
Yeah.
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. I did get the shirt. Yeah, I got the shirt. Yeah.
And do you also raise your family patriotically like you were raised, or do you try to, I guess, kind of show both sides?
As in the book, I teach my children, I think my husband and I, we teach our boys, to look at both sides, and to find some beauty, perhaps, or at least to be understanding of both sides. Now, by no means should anyone, I'm pretty sure no one will take away that we're taking one side or the other. Because it was the confliction that caused me to write it. So I was like, well, I'm not going to write a book that would cause children to, I'm not saying, don't kneel or don't silent protest, but I'm also not saying to do this either. I really wanted it to be a book that would allow children to look at both sides. And like, there's a slogan with the book that's, it's how you use your voice. And that's where that piece comes from. It's, not looking at a public figure, not looking to see what the Beyoncés and the Jay-Z's of the world do, right? Mm-hmm. Or the NFL. At the time, the NFL was really, really big. And I think, during that time they were doing the kneeling and silent protesting at that time in 2016. And that's kind of where a lot of that angst came from. But I like to think, and I'm pretty sure that I do raise my sons. And I actually bought the shirt, and I bought the shirt for my son and made sure he wore it. And I said, you should never feel like you don't deserve or that you can't wear an American flag. Your entire heritage is, at least on his mom's side, is your entire heritage is American. So you have every right to wear this flag as anyone else.
Mm-hmm. I love the fact that your book doesn't push like kids in a certain direction, because I'm sure it was the same for you. But when I was growing up, every textbook, everything that was read to me in class was trying to tell us something like under the radar. It wasn't giving us any room to think for ourselves. And it always was like, so either right or wrong. And so I'm sure it'll be great for a lot of kids to like read something that's like, what do I think about this personally?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm hoping that is the takeaway when kids read it. I think it'll be a big hit with educators because I think there are a lot of takeaways. There's, a lot of truth in the way that I've told the story. I talk about some historical figures in the story. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm excited to see what the feedback is going to be. I'm nervous. I don't know how people are going to receive the book. I'm sure as with anything, there's going to be people who are like, wait a minute, you can't do this, or that doesn't, that's not the way I think. And, but that's the beauty, I think, of being able to write a book like this that is very subjective, because it is my point of view. I'm sure there will be some people who will say, well, there is no two sides. You have to, you must, support the flag when it goes up. I'm sure there are people who think that way, and I'm sure there are people who think the opposite too. So, it's looking at, what does patriotism look like, specifically in the Black community?
For sure. I remember in 2020, I'm not sure if you were looking at Twitter but I remember everyone was like, you either hate this country or you are like gung-ho for it, like you can't have criticisms for something you love, which is so absolutely insane. Because like if you love the U.S., you should want it to get better.
You want it to be better, yeah. You should want it. You should want it to be better. But I think also the story that I'm trying to encourage or trying to have folks see in the book is that there's more than one way to look at any symbolism, whether it be the flag or anything else. And so there are many people who may look at the symbol of the flag and say, well, we're not treated right in this country, and things are still, we have a long way to go. But at the same time, and that may very well be true, and it is true, we do have a long way to go, right? Still. But what does that say about our ancestors, right? Who did so much for us just to get to this point, right? To get the colored only signs removed and to move forward with the civil rights bill of in the 60s. So, I feel like, again, personally to me, not honoring the flag is not honoring them. So, yeah.
That's a good way to look at it. I also saw on your website that you wrote another manuscript that was about the first Black Navy SEAL.
Yes.
Right, a lot of like historical stuff.
It's really funny you should say that, because when I started on this journey of children's books, I never thought in a million years that I would be a children's book writer. I didn't really start this whole journey until 2015, when I came up with the idea to write about Master Chief William Goines, who was the first Black Navy SEAL. He's still alive, by the way. So he was, well, actually, he wasn't even my first idea. He was the first actual book that I wrote. The first idea that I had for a children's book came about with an incident with my son losing his lovey when he was 5 years old. So wrote that book. That's the one that I mentioned on the website that got like a ton of rejections. And I was just kind of like, I sat back and I'm like, and another idea came to me, and that was the Goins. Because as I learned in SCBWI and lots of other organizations that I've been in, if one book is not really going the way you want it, you put it on the shelf and you start a next project. And that's what I did. And that's where The Longest Swim came in. And that one is very near and dear to my heart as well, because William Goins is an absolute national treasure. He is such an amazing man. His past, we've had lots of meetings. I've been to his home and met his wife, and we've talked for hours, and in order for me to collect information about his journey. And so that book is complete. And that is the one that won the New Voices Award for 2019. But so I'm really excited about that one.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you plan on doing more like biographical things in the future?
Yes, I yes. So when I first joined, that's where I was going with this. When I first joined when I first started this journey of children's book writing, I wanted to be like a whimsical, like Harry and Horsey, the kind of books, or what is the one with Paul Frank, Only in Dreams, kind of, where it's very whimsical and fun. And it's amazing how your journey can just take a turn. And the Longest Swim came about because a lot of these ideas were sparked by my sons. I wanted to, around, was it 2011, I think, when Osama bin Laden was captured. And there was a lot of talk about the Navy SEALs being involved in the capture of Osama bin Laden. And I wanted to teach my son about the Navy SEALs. And so that's what sparked that book so I went looking for picture books about Navy SEALs, and I didn't find any. I couldn't find any for my 5-year-old. And so I said, well, if it's not there, I'll write it. And that's how that one came about.
That's awesome. Do you, were there any books that you read growing up that inspired this, or was most of it like, this hasn't been written yet and I'm going to do it?
No, I don't think, at least for me growing up, and I'm sorry, I'm going to answer another question because I realized I didn't answer that other question about, is this kind of my niche, right? Like, do I only do like biographical? And I've learned through the Longest Swim book, I really like the research part of it. And I love like finding all these little nuggets and digging into somebody's background. So I do definitely plan on doing more like historical fiction and nonfiction books. But I'm also definitely looking forward to throwing some more fun type books in there as well. But yeah, growing up, picture books for me when I was little were not as interesting to me. I remember reading Where the Wild Things Are. And that's like super, super old, because that was really, really old even when I was young. So that's saying a lot. And The Snowy Day, and Dr. Seuss, so we didn't have like a lot of these really rich stories that told a story about an individual. And I guess that's just a sign of the times. Like, I guess current events determine what people want. And if the children feel like that's what they want and that's what's selling, clearly that's what people want. And so you'll see more of that. Like there's like a boom of these biographical picture books about like some of my colleagues and people that I really admire in the literary space that are writing. Like Don Tate is like the master of writing these, amazing stories about these people that we've never heard of before. So yeah, I probably will kind of continue on that path. I have a handful of individuals that I am planning to write about, but I can't give that away yet.
What do you think parents and children could take away by reading your book together?
I think what I would like for parents and families to take away would be having confidence in your decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, having confidence in your decisions, having your own voice, like being able to say without a doubt, this is what I believe, this is what I stand for, this is what I want to convey, and being completely okay with that, regardless of what it is. Of course, within reason, of course, as long as it's not, hurting anyone. But in terms of, this topic, just being able to say, you know what, like, I would have loved to initially go into that store and grab that shirt off the rack and just be like, yeah, I'm getting this shirt and we're going to wear it, but I didn't have that confidence, because I felt like, there was so much noise.
Mm-hmm.
And, there was noise from the media, there was noise from the NFLers, and you're like, oh, maybe I should, silently protest. Yeah, because I'm Black and I probably should. I should be on the side of the protesters. And, but is that truly your voice?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Is that truly what you believe when you see the flag? And that's just not how I feel when I see the flag. I just don't. And that's okay. And that's not me saying that the protesters are wrong. They are completely justified in their decision. So just like I can have my decision and I can be confident in that decision, just as confident as Kaepernick was when he kneeled over and over and over again, that confidence right there. And that is across the board. It doesn't even have to be about the flag, but maybe this book sparks that imagination to say, you know what? I can feel this way about X, or I can do this when I'm in the classroom, or I can do this when I'm on the playground, so I feel like that's the takeaway to just instill confidence in young minds.
Yeah. No, that's an awesome message to be sending to kids. So if anyone wants to find your work or any of your other work, where could they do that? So
I would say start with my website. I have a lot of kind of good information on there. That's kind of kid friendly. I've got more books coming, so the website, it will evolve over time. As with any writer, our first book is kind of like the one, so it's like not much else on the website. But the website's a great place to start. www.booksbyalana.com. I am also on Instagram at Alana the Writer. Mm-hmm. And on Twitter, same at Alana the Writer. Those are the main places. And I'll just plug this real quick too. The funny thing is, because as I continue to do more of these, I feel like there's so many different stories to get out, but I wanted to get this one out. When I started on this journey, when I created that website, booksbyalana.com, I didn't have one book. Mm-hmm. I did not have one book. No books at all. I just knew that I wanted to write and I wanted to be an author and I wanted to get into this space. And so I created that domain with hesitancy. And I was like, really? How are you going to call yourself booksbyalana.com and you don't even have any books? And that was in like 2010. And so I just kept with it and, here I am. I've got maybe like 4 books coming. So that's my other message too. Stick with it.
Yeah, that's cool. Have confidence, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that concludes today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us. Everyone, please be sure to go check out her website and all her books. Her book, My Red, White, and Blue, is coming out on January 17th. And yeah, have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, Jordan.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Dr. Sarah Catherine Mundy. She'll be here to celebrate. Please stay here. I want you near. Dr. Sarah is a practicing consulting clinical psychologist working with families and kids, and she has some really amazing insights that you don't want to miss. That's the next episode of the podcast. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to start by thanking our guest, Alana Tyson. Please be sure to check out My Red, White, and Blue. Also want to thank our amazing guest host, Jordan Sahley. I'd love to thank the rest of my team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Stephanie Davila, Will Cheever, Cassandra Messonnet. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.